What was the Hindenburg Disaster? What caused the explosion, and how did it affect the modern world? Let's find out in today's episode of the History Chronicles. Today's History Chronicle takes us back to the year 1937, to a world still in the grip of the Great Depression, and just years away from the Second World War. Technological advances opened the possibility of flight for humans. Aeroplanes and airships became increasingly popular methods of rapid transportation. Of the two, only airships could travel across the Atlantic without a refueling stop. Airships were also faster than ocean liners, leading to a growing industry. The high mark of airship travel came in 1937, with over 2,300 casualty-free flights made by the Zeppelin company alone. However, this year was also the beginning of the end of the airship industry, after the explosion of the German airship Hindenburg at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey. German airships, or Zeppelins as they were commonly known, first came into being in the early 20th century. Founded by the adventurous German Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, the Zeppelin airships became an icon of German power across the globe. During the First World War, German airships had been used as weapons of war, bringing modern warfare to civilians in cities such as London, Paris, Brussels and Antwerp. Following the war, with the help of the American government, who was interested in creating its own armada of airships, the Zeppelin factory turned to producing commercial airships instead of warships. Airships such as the Graf Zeppelin made worldwide voyages that fired the imagination of millions. Other machines capable of flight, such as aeroplanes, were decades behind these massive airships. Airship captains such as Hugo Echner were as famous as aviators, such as Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart. Nazi politicians who were ever eager to demonstrate German superiority quickly harnessed the Zeppelin industry into their propaganda machine, pouring millions of dollars into the company. Zeppelins were seen as evidence of German prosperity and might, and military officials saw the potential airships had as long-range scouts for military forces. Nazi funds provided the essential capital necessary for the construction of the jewel in the crown of the Zeppelin fleet, the Hindenburg. Built in April 1936, the Hindenburg was the largest airship ever built. Measuring 146 feet high, 800 feet long, the Hindenburg could travel almost 9,000 miles before refueling. The ship was propelled through the air by 4 huge Daimler-Benz V8s capable of maintaining a maximum speed of 84 miles per hour. It first sailed for America on the 6th of May 1936, crossing Europe and the Atlantic and capturing the imagination of humanity. The vast aluminium-framed belly of the ship was lined with 16 vast gas cells filled with over 7 million cubic feet of hydrogen. Though originally designed to use non-flammable helium, a lighter-than-air gas discovered by US Navy engineers in the 1920s, restrictions from the sole producer of commercial helium, the United States, on exporting helium forced the Zeppelin company to use flammable hydrogen gas instead. However, that is not to say that the Americans had not offered to compromise. President Herbert Hoover in the 1920s had offered to open the monopoly on helium in the name of safety. German officials refused, believing they had perfected airship design, allowing them to continue to use hydrogen gas. The Hindenburg was a modern marvel for its early passengers. American newspapers had reserved seats in advance so that the world could see inside the ultra-modern way of the future. Equipped with 25 cabins, the Hindenburg held 50 passengers in addition to the ship's crew of 50. Each bedroom contained 2 berths and running water. The ship also contained a reading room, a lounge with a grand piano, a dining room, observation halls on either side of the ship, a bar and a smoking room. The initial cost for a berth on the Hindenburg was $400 one-way fare or $720 round trip. Factoring in inflation, these tickets today would have cost over $7,000. The food was lavish, the views incredible, and the voyage the height of luxury. The smoking room was lined with asbestos and was airtight to prevent any spark jumping into the hydrogen-lifted ship's interior. The lounge was decked with murals by Otto Apke, a noted graphic illustrator in Germany, depicting the evolution of airship travel. For most of the airship's passengers, however, the greatest achievement of the Hindenburg was its ability to unite the world. Louis Lochner, a passenger on the maiden voyage of the Hindenburg, marvelled at how the proximity of New York to Berlin was made closer than ever before by the Zeppelin. Following air currents, the Hindenburg and other airships drastically decreased the amount of time required to cross the Atlantic. Proof of this came on the Hindenburg's maiden voyage, when she beat an ocean liner that had left hours before her by 2 days. For many, including the 100,000 who had gathered to watch the arrival of the Hindenburg in New Jersey, the dawn of a new age had sprung upon the world as the Hindenburg that year travelled over 191,000 miles. The Hindenburg operated without incident for a year, performing its duties as an airship and as a symbol of Nazi propaganda. However, the Hindenburg's final voyage was to change the world. The voyage began uneventfully, leaving from Frankfurt, Germany on the 3rd of May 1937. Despite fierce weather, the passengers were unaffected as they travelled through the skies, barely noticing the fierce storm colliding with the ship. The Hindenburg pulled into the air station at Lakehurst, New Jersey on the 6th of May, but a thunderstorm prevented the landing for several hours and charged the atmosphere nearby with electricity. A standard landing procedure was to release hydrogen into the air to allow the ship to decrease in altitude. However, this would prove to be exceptionally dangerous, as one spark of electricity could ignite the ship into a fiery inferno. Airships avoided landing during thunderstorms at all costs to avoid an explosion. As the weather improved, the ground station advised the Hindenburg to land. Dozens of reporters excitedly chatted about the Hindenburg's arrival. Cars arrived, bringing hundreds of sightseers to see the landing German marvel. Meanwhile, in the control cabin of the Hindenburg, the captains noticed that the tail of the Hindenburg felt heavy. What they did not realise was that a small seepage was likely occurring through the worn gas bag fabric, allowing explosive hydrogen gas to escape the ship. After following safety protocols, the captains continued to the landing station. The crowds were almost breathless as the lines were dropped to the ground, the excitement tangible in the air. Their excitement turned to horror at 7:25 p.m. when a burst of flame appeared near the top of the Hindenburg's rear. Many of the onlookers noticed the flame. 34 seconds later, the entire ship was engulfed in flames as a flash erupted from the rear of the Hindenburg. Inside the Hindenburg, the thrill of landing was turned to horror as the tail of the ship plummeted several hundred feet to earth, followed by the nose, the once mighty airship crashing to the ground. Flames shot through the cabins as passengers began to leap to the earth below. As the behemoth settled on the earth, flames hungrily licked everything nearby. Some of the desperate passengers fled unknowingly deeper into the flames, never to be seen again. The local Navy men in charge of the air station rushed forward to save passengers from the glowing inferno that was once the Hindenburg. Blackened passengers, bodies covered in burns and soot, made their way from the wreckage. As burned passengers and crew were rushed to the local naval hospital, many were determined too burned to save. Miraculously, only 36 people would die from the disaster. A shocking statistic, considering the magnitude of the explosion. Shocked and dismayed at the destruction, Nazi leaders soon sent a team to America to investigate the cause of the explosion. Meanwhile, Zeppelin officials began laying blame for the crash on American hoarding of helium, conveniently forgetting the years of offers from American officials to share the gas. Zeppelin officials promised to only use helium in the future. However, public support, including that of Nazi officials such as Adolf Hitler, was gone. The crash had exasperated years of fears revolving around the massive airships. Decades of accidents had pushed an already wary public to disapprove of the giant ships. For many, the disaster had shifted the focus from airships to aeroplanes once and for all. Government officials from both the United States and Germany searched for answers as to why the disaster had happened at all. Most of the focus shifted to a conspiracy theory involving a Mr. Joseph Spa, an acrobat who was a passenger on the Hindenburg. Investigators feared that perhaps he had set off a bomb, thus causing the explosion. The FBI conducted a thorough investigation into Spa, only to find nothing. Other explanations were given, suggesting communist or anti-Nazi efforts to destroy the ship. These investigations also yielded nothing. The United States Congress soon convened a hearing to determine the cause of the accident. By late May, sensational hearings were taking place in the US Capitol as congressmen sought to obtain answers as to what caused the horrific crash. German officials carefully concealed knowledge that they had discovered a damaged gas bag months before the crash and had done nothing. Seeking to save the industry and their own reputations, the men avoided any damaging revelations to the press. However, a passenger on board Leonard Adelt, shared the information with investigators. Adelt had been friends with the ship's captain and had spent hours conversing with the captain on the matter. This bombshell revelation, however, remained obscured during the workings of the investigation, thus preventing the public from learning the true cause of the accident. However, this mattered little for the fate of the Zeppelin industry, and airships in general. Public opinion had decidedly turned against the massive airships, and with the arrival of World War II, the massive airships were forgotten. As aeroplanes became more advanced with longer ranges, the dream of a world dominated by airships was dismissed. The Hindenburg disaster contributed to this falling out due to the prominence of the ship and the publicity of the crash itself. The Hindenburg, the mightiest of the airships during the early 20th century, was also the cause of the death of the airship industry. You have been watching the History Chronicles. We'd love to know what you think of the Hindenburg disaster. Please let us know below, and if you enjoyed our video, please give us a like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Also, if you'd like to support our work going forward, please visit our Patreon page, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of the History Chronicles.